Hello, welcome back to my channel, Madrona's Pulse Teachings. I am Iris J. Gilday, and I would love to chat with you about these energies of this weekend, the astrology that's taking us into the week, and then the shift from April into May, which will carry us forward towards our Taurus new moon, which is going to be on May 7th. I will have a different video for the new moon. Here I really want to talk about, especially this weekend, but there's a lot of shifts going on in our realms of archetypal evolutionary astrology that are really supporting deep integration of all that we have been through in all of April and eclipse season, and also a deep, potentially very deep release. Again, these are always kind of working with the general stories, interweaving stories of the archetypes and how they manifest and interact with our own personal lives always depends upon our chart. And there could be a lot coming up this weekend because Mars, who is at the end of his journey around the zodiac, coming to the final degrees of Pisces, so about to begin a whole new journey through the zodiac, has to move through the gatekeeper, and the gatekeeper right now is Neptune. So they are going to be conjunct at 28 degrees of Pisces, and this is exact on April 28th. And then Mars is going to move slightly ahead, and then it's going to move into Aries on April 30th. Okay, so we're ending this month with Mars moving into Aries. But first, we cannot go to the end. First, it has to conjunct Neptune. And this is a very particular story that comes up for Mars, because Mars is the archetype of our will, of our drive, of the energy that helps us move forward, accomplish things, feel a sense of purpose, have a very personal will that we're here to have as a human, and in a positive construct of our ego. Mars is part of how we enact our energy in the world, and it's a very yang drive. And firstly, it's been journeying through Pisces, which is the deep oceanic waters in which the ego dissolves into ultimately one with spirit. There's all different levels and manifestations of Pisces energy, and just like any sign, there's different kind of frequencies, embodiments of it, and yet there's always kind of the core quintessential archetype. And in Pisces, that is the dissolving of the ego and the reunion with divine spirit, God consciousness, divine mystery, source. And Mars is about to conjunct Neptune, who's aligned with Pisces energy, who's also in a mighty finish of its journey around the zodiac, but Neptune moves much, much more slowly. So we'll be talking about Neptune's journey into Aries down the line. And so Mars has to conjunct this planet that is about everything that's beyond the day-to-day, that is about dreams and the dissolving of ego and the collective unconscious and mysticism and just all the types of experiences that we have both in this plane and beyond that do not fit into the nice little neat boxes that Mars can kind of align and check off and move and create its projects in this very earthly realm. And this is sometimes it is a challenge for Mars. And so thinking about Mars as our very personal archetype of our will and our drive during this weekend, it's already begun, but especially this weekend as it's exact on the 28th, Mars is asked to surrender. A part of us, And so again, wherever you have those final degrees of Pisces in your chart, in your natal chart, really speaks to how this is manifesting for you, what types of themes or experiences might be coming up. If you have planets or placements there or in a square, this is where we start getting into the interpretive layers of astrology. But just knowing the general energies is that Mars is moving through a gatekeeper, a threshold, and it has to surrender. And as this happens, it's like we could definitely experience a depletion of energy. It's kind of like Mars, this energy this archetype that just wants to move. Mars wants to move. And it's been in Pisces. It's been doing the surrender, but this takes it to the next level. And it has to enter a void. And in the void, oh my gosh, in the void, there is so much present, but it is not present in the way that we can analyze it or work with it or act with it or accomplish in this very kind of minute daily realm of accomplishments. It is a whole different way of being, of belonging, and it is so much more vast than Mars is sometimes comfortable with. And also in that void, especially with Mars about to complete a cycle and begin a new one. And it's nice to think of, a spiral rather than just a static circle, because ultimately every new beginning around the zodiac is entering into, a different realm that's more aligned with spirit. That's why it's got to pass through the final degree of the zodiac in Pisces, now with Neptune. And there could be grief coming up. Mars is being asked through that surrender to release outdated attachments to ideas of aggression, of ideas of needing to compete in order to feel validated, of ideas of power over others as a sign of success, let alone as a path through this human life. It is being asked to release anything in like what we've been taught, both in our own personal journeys and also through the collective narratives that write our social collective scripts and histories about power over as the path that we were supposed to take in order to feel meaning, in order to feel connected. And these are pretty strong lessons. I mean, even if we come from an incredibly progressive spiritual family, if we still went through the public school system or a private school system that's aligned to normative Western ideas, we've been taught some pretty strong things about how our will is supposed to manifest. And Pisces journeying through, and Mars moving through Pisces is just this wonderful clearing out of that. But then it comes to Neptune, and it is enter the void. And by being in the void, we don't have to do anything except be present and release. And also knowing, especially if this is bringing up things in your chart where you're very sensitive, you might be feeling that release. And it is Neptune and Pisces. This is not making a list of the explicit understanding of what's happening. This is just feeling it all. And this is just letting go and surrender. And it's also opening through that into incredible compassion, incredible experiences of forgiveness. And some of those themes could come up too. But first, the release has to happen. And so Mars is being asked to do that. And this is really significant because we still have a heck of a lot going on in Aries, and Mars is the ruler of Aries. And so especially that Mercury, who thankfully is going direct now, and is approaching its next conjunction with Chiron, because it was there and then it came back, and we went through our eclipse, our total solar eclipse with Chiron. But those themes are most likely going to come up. And so absolutely what this Mars is releasing, what we are releasing, is absolutely connected to what came up for you during the Aries eclipse, what came up for you around letting go of a former sense of self and identity to claim new primal fires and have them be aligned, to have mind, gut, and heart aligned in a way that is not what we've been taught or someone told us we had to show up, but how we instinctively and with some really reclaimed intuition, because fire is intuition, show up. And it's kind of like a bookend to that as we move through into May. Okay, so it is kind of a lot. Just that is a lot, and I have other things I want to tell you about. One of them being that then Venus is going to move into Taurus, and this is quite lovely, and this is really speaking to the integration as well. And this is going to be on April 28th as well. Okay, so this is Venus moving into Taurus, one of its home signs. And as we know, Uranus and Jupiter are still conjunct. Okay, they're still very close together, moving off from, the 22nd and to the 23rd degree of Taurus. And they're still digging up soil and planting new seeds and sending shockwaves through. They're still wanting to unearth a new experience of Taurus energy, which is potentially a new experience of how we live in our body, potentially a new experience of how we relate to the natural environment, of how we relate to our senses. And how we relate to our senses is huge, because it's how we relate to the world. How we relate to the information that we receive through our senses and how we move with that in our body is part of how we process information and how we interpret the world around us and how we interpret ourselves. And so this is potentially huge shifts that are coming with Uranus and Jupiter and Taurus, and now Venus, who was in Aries during the exact conjunction, moves into Taurus. And this is really helpful for integration of what's been going on for you with that kind of mighty Uranus and Jupiter conjunction. And she's going to move ahead, and then she's going to square Pluto. Okay, so she's going to square Pluto on May 1st, because Pluto is at the 2nd degree of Aquarius. So as part of the integration, Pluto works 6 magic, and there's transformation going on. Okay, but here, this is really helpful because Venus is in the sign that rules that Uranus-Jupiter conjunction. It is wanting to ground us into the body. And yet that Pluto square that she makes as she moves through those first degrees of Taurus is also potentially wanting to help us come to understand what the heck has been going on. And here, keeping in mind that Mars is going through this, there's this kind of cleansing of Mars in our personal will. That cleansing might actually help our ego to get out of the way so that we can receive higher mind insights from Pluto about what's going on in our Taurus realms. Okay. And if this is your first time on my channel, there's video links below for like the Taurus energy, because you do want to kind of check in with what's been going on in those Taurus realms, because as we come into May, there's these energies that are helping us to integrate, but it's also Pluto. And it's that's there where if we're not willing to release, if we're not willing to slow down, if we're not willing to listen to our freaking body, especially with Venus and Taurus and this conjunction in Taurus, do I need to rest? Do I need to go be alone in nature? What is my body asking me? And usually we know, and then we say, we kind of pretend that we don't know. And then through that pretending that we don't know, we stop listening. And then we kind of go numb a little bit in our body. And then we get a headache, or we feel sick, or something's happening. And yet at some point we knew that we needed to take time alone, that we needed to go be in our spot, that we needed to be with a tree, that, we needed to see those roots coming up through the ground in the earth. This little cabin that I'm in, full on the reason that I went on this huge journey of purchasing this cabin years ago was like because of these incredible roots of old cedar and Douglas fir. I just fell in love with them. Because those root systems are so important, and being with them especially can help us integrate, and just taking time. And that might be really important during this shift into May. And then Pluto gonna go retrograde. Pluto's gonna go retrograde on May 2nd. Okay, now on the one hand, Pluto always goes retrograde for several months. That's part of its natural cycle. On the other hand, this is a very particular Pluto retrograde because it's the beginning of the end. It's the beginning of the end of Pluto going back into Capricorn, beginning its final journey, which will not happen until September. And then Pluto will station direct, and it will come back into Aquarius in November-ish. So this shift of Pluto is significant. You know, any shift of Pluto is significant, and it, you know, any shifting retrograde is kind of like gears shifting. But when Pluto's doing it, it's gears shifting way down under the surface. But this is an Aquarius, so it's also way up in higher mind and kind of doing this huge multidimensional circle because it's soul. But this is significant because this is a major shift that's bringing us into a different age with Pluto. And this is absolutely, as Pluto is in that final stage of Capricorn, it is a goodbye. It is a goodbye, and it is a coming into a new age in some sorts. And we have a lot to chat about in terms of Pluto and Aquarius, because it's not just everything's technology and technology is wonderful and this is how we're doing it. That's not what Pluto and Aquarius is about. Is technology a theme? Absolutely. It's about so much. Okay. And so there's a lot of shifts in this next week. And then we'll be carried into our May 7th new moon that's happening in Taurus. And I will have another video on there. But it is absolutely coming into this period of deep release and integration, which is very helpful coming out of what we've been through. And I also wanted to say, and I wanted actually to say this a lot earlier, there's been a lot of people whose lives have radically shifted during the past few weeks, during eclipse and then Uranus and Jupiter, radically shifted in some very difficult ways. And so if you find yourself moving through a period of grief right now, I am sending love to you and really finding nourishment in the earth, in those roots, in nature. Nourishment meaning that it's not going to take away the grief or the pain if you find yourself in one of these situations, but that there is belonging there, and there is connection there, and connection and belonging, especially when it is to that which we are part of and is also greater than us and is not manufactured through consumerism and is this natural heartbeat of the earth and us, is nourishment and healing, and that type of connection can offer support. So really leaning in to that Taurus energy, to Venus coming into Taurus, and finding companionship in that. Okay, as we move forward in this version of a linear timeline that we know is a part of something so much bigger. Okay, thank you so much, and sending out lots of love, and see you soon.